So let's begin. Today's author's written or co-written 16 books, including bestsellers with Scottie Pippen, Phil Jackson, and Sugar Ray Leonard, three of my childhood heroes there. He's a former staff writer for the Los Angeles Times. He's also contributed to the New York Times and the Washington Post. His book, The Golf 100, was said by Jimmy Roberts, one of my favorite broadcasters. He does all the NBC Olympic snippets that I love so much. And Jimmy said, some people are skilled writers, some are dogged reporters. Michael Arkush, for as long as I've known him, which is a long time, has always been both. In the Golf 100, he again marries fluid prose and effortless storytelling with deep and solid research to attack one of golf's favorite barroom arguments. It's such an easy read. I was done before I knew it and only wanting more. For that, to talk about it, please welcome Michael Arkush.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that, and thank you for having this event. Before I get started, I just want to single out my wife, Pauletta, here. She's right there.
Hi.
Her help in everything in my life has been unbelievable, and that includes this book. I just wanted to thank her again for everything. Why did I take on this absolutely insane assignment, right? Where it was destined to get criticism, destined to get people pushing back, destined to get, I've gotten some strange letters, people just arguing out of nowhere. Why did I do that? Well, I did that for so many reasons. I used to read these obituaries online about players I knew or I followed, and they'd be 300 words long, 400 words long, and they'd be on the crawl. You know that crawl on the bottom? Right. So they'd be there for a brief period of time. They'd be gone. I go, wait a minute. I want to know more. I want people to know more about these guys. So many of the players today, so many of the athletes today know so little about the players who paved the way for them to be great and have the opportunities today. So I took it upon myself to do that. But I just couldn't, once I decided I was going to write about the top 100, I could just say, hey, I'm a golf writer for all these years. I know who's number 98. I know who's number 94. Trust me. That would not go over well. I needed some kind of system. So the system I came up with was getting the basis of golf greatness is major championships. The barometer, who has performed the best when the stakes are at the highest. So I decided to give 2,000 points for every major victory, 500 for second, 250 third, 100 fourth, and 55th. I also counted PGA Tour victories, 300 points apiece, only first place. I decided to supplement that with bonus points. There are players on this list who died when they were young, who retired when they were young, so I estimated how they would have performed if they'd had full careers. I also gave points for contributions to the game. Bobby Jones, Arnold Palmer, Gene Sarazen, who invented the sand wedge. People who not just what they did on the course, but outside of their playing, how they contributed and how they made an impact on this game. So I came up with all these names. I threw a bunch of them in there. I kept going through the math a million times. I'm not a math major. And then I ranked them in that order. And I also, this is very important, to me, it was crucial to include women. I think that, and some people have come back to me and said, how could you put women in the list? How could you not put women in the list? It's insane. Some of the greatest women golf players in the history of the game are women. That's a fact. And to ignore that is absurd. There's a woman in the book named Mickey Wright. She's number 6 in the whole book. Great player in the 60s. A couple different radio broadcasters said to me, I couldn't find Mickey Wright's name anywhere. I couldn't find him anywhere. Can you believe that? Yeah. I was very diplomatic in my response. I didn't scream at the person. But I think it's so important that they're in there. I also think it's crucial that we value the amateur. Too often, you have U.S. amateurs has been this week in San Francisco. And do you guys know that? Okay, but most people do not know that. Most golf fans don't even know that. The amateur does not have the status it used to have, and that is a horrible thing. It's a shame. It's all about live. It's all about money. It's all about prizes. The amateur, just for the sake of the playing of the game, for the sake of the history of the game, it's horrible that it's been relegated the way it has. So I gave every amateur championship up until 1961 the same point, every U.S. amateur title and British amateur title, the same points as U.S. Open, Masters, PGA.
Okay.
Because for many years they were major championships. Bobby Jones won the Grand Slam in 1930. Okay, 2 of the majors he won were the U.S. amateur and the British amateur. But suddenly, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, much even more recently, we've lost that. The game is the amateurs lost its luster. So I decided I wanted to restore that. So why did I pick 1961 as the cutoff? That's when Jack Nicklaus won his second U.S. amateur, and nobody in the vicinity of the greatness of Nicklaus as a college player has really thought about staying as an amateur since then. Everybody was definitely going to turn pro. So that's where I marked it off. That's the last time the amateur really had that standard. So every amateur victory since then, like Tiger's, U.S. amateurs, I counted half as many points, 1,000 for victory. But you know, so what I did is I wound up coming up with the list. I wound up interviewing 31 of the players who were alive. Close to about 10 did not want to be interviewed. It's really, the whole nature of trying to interview players has changed over the years. They have agents, they have managers, you have to go through all these different layers. And so a lot of guys didn't do it, but a lot of the ones I knew who were very kind, gave me plenty of time. Nicklaus gave me a lot of time. Tom Watson, Gary Player, a lot of the greats. So I was able to talk to them. And I wanted to find out, sort of at this stage of their lives, do they have any regrets? Do they have any, do they wish they had done things differently? Do they see their losses any differently now as they get closer to the end? I hate to be morbid about it, but that's really the story, than they did when they were younger. And I wanted to just find, and I guess I was looking for that for myself too. That, you know, we all have losses in life, and I wanted to find out, do we consider them, how do we look back on them now? And so they had a lot of interesting things to say about that. Hale Irwin, Curtis Strange, Ben Crenshaw, in their 70s, 80s, very revealing comments about that. So that was part of my purpose of why I wanted to do that. Interviewed a bunch of them half dozen times. I went through the numbers, as I say, a million times. And then, and we go back. I go back all the way to 1860. I go back to old Tom Morris, okay? The Willie Park Sr., the first major championship winner in the 1860 British Open. These guys, again, have been neglected, and I wanted to bring them back. Leo Deagle, Walter Travis. I've had people I know who are very knowledgeable in golf, and they don't know half some of these guys, and I felt a responsibility, sort of an obligation to restore that. Any questions while I take a break here?
Why do you feel this Why did you feel this obligation?
Because golf has been so important to me. After my father died when I was young, my aunt and uncle taught me the game, and it was a lifesaver in many ways. And I felt a responsibility to these players who formed such a part of my youth, and then later on when I was a professional when I was a golf writer. So I felt an obligation to make sure that they're not forgotten. It was very important to me.
Growing up, did you follow the game?
Oh yeah, I followed the first major championship I remember really was the 1970 Masters that Billy Casper won, then the 1971 U.S. Open that Trevino beat Nicklaus in a playoff. I used to sit there and watch. Jim McKay was the ABC announcer. They had Jim McKay, they had Jack Whitaker. Golf on TV was so much more fun than it is now, okay? Didn't have advertisements for the FedEx Cup and all that. It was just really about the playing of the game. I followed all those 4 times a year. I couldn't wait for the major championship. The other events too, but the majors really stood out.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, but in the women's game too, I remember watching Kathy Whitworth and Joanne Carter, all these great women players. And I feel that women's golf still, even now, doesn't get anywhere near the attention it should. It's a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So, yeah, go ahead.
You had mentioned the amateur championships and how their status had been reduced over the years.
Yeah.
Wasn't it, and I don't know the timing of this, but wasn't it at one point considered a major
Yeah.
championship.
Oh, it was. And
Yeah.
it suddenly, it's the weirdest thing. Like Jack Nicklaus won 2 U.S. amateurs, and after he won the '86 Masters, if you listen to the YouTube broadcast, and I watched every YouTube of every major championship ever, basically it's available.
Wow.
Yeah, sick. I know. I also read every Golf Digest issue from 1950 on. My wife will attest that I did not have a life in those 3 years I worked on this book. But when he won the Masters in '86, they go, Jack Nicklaus has won his 20th major championship. Then somehow, in the '90s, they took them away, and he only has 18.
Right.
And nobody knows who took those away. Really.
Really?
It's a mystery. Yeah. Somebody in the PGA Tour, somebody made a change, and then everyone followed it, and then suddenly he only has 18. Imagine taking 4 Babe Ruth's home runs away or something, you know?
Yeah, that's about what you're doing.
Yeah, so the amateur, again, it was such a glorious tournament, and I'm a golf writer, and I couldn't tell you the names of the last 5 U.S. amateur winners, and there's something wrong with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the guys, everybody was incredibly forthcoming. I was very grateful for that. I myself learned a lot about people. There was a guy named Tom Weiskopf. Remember him?
Yeah, sure.
Great player in the 60s and
Ohio.
70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
My home state.
very fiery temper. I was scared to death to talk to him because I thought he might kind of like, I don't know, unload on me on the phone. He could not have been more compassionate and more revealing. He was suffering from pancreatic cancer at the time. He wound up dying in 2022, and that's the other weird thing. Both him and Kathy Whitworth died while I was working on this book, and I was very affected by that. And even though I barely knew both of them, but somehow they were part of this list I was putting together, and I felt like, wait a minute, what are you doing? You know, I want to wait till I'm done with this book or something. I mean, it was selfish, I understand, but they really meant a lot to me to be able to, because of the greatness of who they were, really. But I didn't know that much about Weiskopf. I didn't know that he once decided not to play in the Ryder Cup because he had to go to a sheep hunt. Imagine that happening now, right? Yeah. Who else? People like Ben Crenshaw, Tom Kite, Curtis Strange. It was great to catch up with them and to be able to tell their stories.
Speaking of Tom Weiskopf, somebody told me a story about him that I found it hard to believe. He actually went to Ohio State on a scholarship, athletic scholarship, but at the time they only had one scholarship for golf, which Jack Nicklaus had at that time. And he apparently went to Ohio State on a baseball scholarship, but never played baseball.
No, yeah, well, you know, things, they did a lot of things like that back in those days, you know.
Still do it.
But he, you know, the thing about Weiskopf, it's kind of sad because he was always compared to Nicklaus. And it's unfair, really.
Yeah.
And Tom
Scottie
Kite,
Pippen.
yeah, what's that?
Like Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan.
Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, yeah. And Tom Kite was compared to Ben Crenshaw, so they suffered from that. I think that affected their careers, especially Weiskopf, because there was no better pure ball striker than Weiskopf.
Yeah.
And he had, in 1973, he won the British Open and a number of other tournaments. It was shortly after his dad died. And he played as good a golf as we've seen in decades. He was incredible. Yeah. But so since the book's come out, because this is one of the first talks I've given in the last month or so, you know, a lot of people have come up to me and said the Tiger versus Jack, right? Everybody who seems to be about 40 or younger says Tiger. Everybody older, Jack. And you know, I did the numbers, and it wasn't really that close. I mean, Jack has, besides his 20 major victories, he's got 19 second places, 9 thirds. The numbers far outrank Tiger's. I think Tiger was on the path to being the greatest player of all time, but we all know what happened. The injuries and the scandal. When he won his 14th major in 2008 at the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines down the road here, everyone thought, okay, he's going to break Jack's record in 2010, 11, 12. He never did it. So he should be the greatest player of all time, but he's not. It's Jack Nicklaus. Just spoiler alert in case you're wondering there. But I had a tough decision. One of the tough things was between number 3 and 4, Ben Hogan, Bobby Jones. Who would think should be number 3? Who should be number 4? Any opinions on that?
Boy, that's a tough one.
Well, Ben Hogan comes to mind from
Yeah.
more people than Bobby Jones because it's ignorance.
No, but you're right. Ben Hogan was incredible. The car accident, he won 9 majors, unbelievable work ethic. But we forget about Bobby Jones.
The books that he has
Right.
written, the golf company.
Company
that he
had everything.
started. Yeah.
But Bobby Jones wins a Grand Slam at the age of 28. In his last 21 major appearances, he wins 13 of them. Okay. Oh, by the way, he did this while having a day job. He was a lawyer. All right. So I think he is underappreciated. There are a number of players in this book who are underappreciated by history, in my mind, and Bobby Jones is right on the top of that list. Not to take anything away from Hogan's greatness.
Huh.
Yeah. So people ask me, who would you want to play if you had a foursome you could play of all time? It would be Nicklaus, Jones, the other 3 players, and Mickey Wright would be the 3rd player. Because Mickey Wright, again, the great woman player from the 60s, had the best swing, male or female, ever. Even Hogan said so. And she left the game pretty much at the age of 34, a lot of injuries and so on. And people say, well, wait a minute, how come you don't have Annika as the number 1 woman of all time? Annika's great, but Annika was no Mickey Wright.
Mm. Where do you have Annika? Just said.
I have Annika number 26.
Okay.
And I got some calls about that.
Okay. Can you share some of the arguments people have given you after the book has come out?
Well, they say Tiger, how dominant Tiger was. And I'm not arguing with that. Tiger, if you said to me right now, you have to put all your money on Tiger or Jack in an 18-hole match, I might put it on Tiger in one match. But greatness is about a body of work, an entirety of a career. And over that entirety, Jack's numbers and greatness were greater, period. But a lot of people can't believe I don't put Tiger there. And Annika's another one, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But there are a lot of interesting characters. There's one player on the list, number 100, John McDermott. Have any of you ever heard of him?
Yeah.
Okay. U.S. Open champion, 1911, 1912. Still at the age of 19, the youngest Open champion ever. Okay. Great player. He wound up having some losses in the stock market. He was on a ship off England that collided, and he was affected by that. He was rescued. He was okay, but he was affected. He then wound up going to a mental hospital in 1914. Spent a lot of his life in a mental hospital, and never played professional golf again. In 1971, he's at the U.S. Open in Marion, outside Philly, and he's in the clubhouse. He's a pretty old man at that point, and an assistant pro comes in and starts to usher him out of the clubhouse, saying, "Who's this old guy hanging around the clubhouse?" Right? So he starts to take him out, and at that moment, Arnold Palmer walks in and recognizes who John McDermott is, puts his arm around him, and he's Palmer's guest the rest of the week.
Mm.
So I'm glad you brought that up because I like the fact that you've adhered to statistics because there's so many ways to parse this out. But then people think about temperament, like Arnold Palmer. Everybody knows Arnold Palmer. Why isn't he number 1? So it's really genial what you've done because all these subjectivity points that could come into the equation.
Right. No, thank you for saying that. Yeah. And I was very fortunate to meet Palmer a number of times, and everything everybody said about him is absolutely right. I would be at tournaments and he'd be signing autographs for an hour and a half. Just and I remember somebody told me that hung around him a lot that not once did he ever complain about being around people. Did he ever say, "Get me," like a lot of these prima donnas. They wanted, if there was a lot of public around, they wanted just, "How can you get me out of this situation?" And he never did that. He realized how fortunate he was that people followed him and loved him, and he gave back everything to this game. Absolutely incredible. And the other thing about him is he cared so deeply. You remember the expression on his face when he missed a putt or something? He used to be so agonized. He put everything in the game, and he went for broke. He went for shots that maybe he shouldn't have gone for, but he wanted to win that badly. I mean, I think he taught us more in losing even than he did in winning.
Oh.
Lot to lose. There's a lot to learn in losing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Speaking of losing, so Phil Mickelson, where's he on the list? Phil Mickelson is number 13, and he should have been higher. He's got 6 majors. He should have 8, 9, maybe 10. He threw a couple away, most famously the 2006 U.S. Open at Winged Foot. Remember what he did there?
Yeah.
So on the 18th hole, and he drives it left. And then, instead of trying to just hit it out of the fairway to hopefully set up a chance to play in a playoff the next day, he goes for broke, winds up getting a double bogey and losing by 1. But he should have won more majors. That's the other weird takeaway for me, was there are a lot of great players, as great as they were, they underachieved. I actually think Tiger Woods was an underachiever if you go from 2008 on.
Yeah.
Okay, and there are a lot of other players. Davis Love and Fred Couples. Fred Couples, who lived around here for a
Yeah.
while. Okay, did he ever come to the store?
No, not that I know.
I'm not shocked by that. But he and Davis Love together only have 2 total major titles. If you had told me in 84 or something like that, how many total majors would they have? I'd go 5 to 10, easy, and they have 2. This game is so hard. Not only are you battling the course and the opponents, but you're battling your own demons all the time. I mean, look at Rory McIlroy. He finally won the Masters in April, finally won a major after 10 years. And after blowing the U.S. Open a couple years ago, he's had a lot of near misses. So this game is so mental.
Yeah, he had 2 double bogeys today in his round.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder about him. I wonder now that he's got the Masters, what's the goal now?
Yeah.
You know, how do you gather the energy and the effort to get that next mountain, whatever that is? I don't know. We'll see.
Michael, who surprised you as far as overachieved?
Overachieved. You know, I mean, Tom Kite a little bit. I mean, he was it's just a workaholic, though. I mean, if there's some guys had an incredible amount of talent. I'm not saying he doesn't have talent, but other guys just did it by refusing to give in. It's a great golf lends itself to that. I mean, you just go on the range and just keep trying, and you never quite master it. And but to put the work in was unbelievable. So, I mean, he might be a little bit there. I don't know any others really overachieve. You know.
Yeah.
I was surprised I was surprised at people I didn't put on there. I mean, I'm going to admit this. It looks crazy now, but I think he won today. I haven't seen the last hole or two. Did Scotty win?
Well, it was when we left, he was ahead.
He was ahead by 2 with a couple. Scotty Scheffler is not on this list. I don't know what insane golf author decided not to do that. No, but I did the numbers last year through the British Open, through 2024 British Open, and he hadn't qualified yet. He's obviously would be on there now. I mean, he's unbelievable. I mean, he's rising by the day. So.
How about Ben Hogan at 132 pounds?
You know, I mean, the Hogan story is remarkable. The way to come back from that accident, I mean, I think he had in 1953, he played in 6 tournaments, right? And he won 3 of them. He won 3 majors, those 6 tournaments. He didn't play in the PGA because the PGA then was like coincided with the British Open. And besides, he couldn't have played 36-hole matches day after day with his leg injuries. But I don't think anybody in golf has had a year he's had to win 3 majors with the body that he was stuck with. It was incredible. Yeah.
You know, his book is still amongst our best-selling sports books. Not just golf books,
I know.
but sports books.
I know. There's so many golfers who read that book and were inspired to play and became great because of that. Larry Nelson's one of them who's on the list. Larry Nelson.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, because it gives me a segue to Larry Nelson.
Yeah.
Larry Nelson served in Vietnam. Tommy Armour's in this book served in World War I.
Yeah.
Lloyd Mangrum in World War II. There are so many players in this book who served our country. It was very moving. Lloyd Mangrum was at Normandy. He was at the Battle of the Bulge. Tommy Armour lost his sight in one eye. I mean, and yet they still wound up winning tournaments and winning majors. But the sacrifice they gave, John Ball, here's a guy, I'm sure none of you have heard of John Ball, right? Okay. John Ball, English player, won 9 majors, 8 British amateurs, okay? And he also served in the Second Boer War. I didn't know when I started this book, I'd find someone who served in the Second Boer War. That was great. So just the contribution they made to all of us, not just obviously the game of golf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the most compelling story that you didn't know about a golfer? Could be non-golf too, part of.
Compelling. I mean, like the one I mentioned earlier about McDermott and Palmer was so touching. There are a lot of compelling stories. I think what I learned is there's a guy named Walter Travis who took up golf in his late 30s from Australia, then moved to the United States, won a bunch of U.S. amateurs here. He later gave Bobby Jones a putting lesson, which many think might have changed Jones's life. Without that putting lesson, he might not have become Bobby Jones. I'd heard the name, but I didn't know much about him. So to me, it was this discovery that happened all the time of greatness that has been, again, so untouched, uncovered. That guy named Leo, as I mentioned before, Leo Deagle, major champion. So many guys like that. Yeah.
How did you unearth the information about these?
Well, fortunately, I have a friend who has every golf book ever written, basically. And I went to his house and took most of them. And I, especially guys before 1950, I just had to find these old books because there's nothing on the internet about it, very little on the internet. But fortunately, everybody since 1950 have found Golf Digest articles and so on. But like old Tom Morris, young Tom Morris, Willie Park Sr., this guy named John Henry Taylor from England, a lot of guys like that. You're right, it was very hard to find information, but I was able to do it. Yeah. But what other players, the other women I really enjoy talking to were Kathy Whitworth, as I said before she passed.
Yeah.
Nancy Lopez was fantastic. Nancy Lopez, the Arnold Palmer of the LPGA Tour. She told a story about how she went to the LA Open as a kid when she was 15, and she was waiting in line for her hero to sign an autograph. She gets up there, and right beforehand, she hears the hero basically telling some other kid, "I'm not signing that." It was incredibly rude. And she walked away, and she decided if she ever became a great player, she would sign every autograph and never disappoint somebody like that. And she did that. And I asked her 20,000 times to tell me who the player was, and she won't tell me. I can guess that.
Shows you how classy she still is.
Oh my gosh. And you got to watch the YouTube of her 1997 U.S. Women's Open. She lost to Allison Nicholas in Portland. And I've never heard a crowd try to will somebody to victory the way they did with Nancy. It was just, she was late in her career. She was running out of opportunities, and she never won a U.S. Women's Open. And that's, I had a, she's not as high on the list as some people would have thought because she never won the Open. Phil Mickelson never won the Open. Sam Snead, the great Sam Snead, never won the U.S. Open. So, can't get everything, I guess.
Yeah. Do we have any more questions?
Can you get your books up?
So we'll close with this thought. I was wondering, after writing the interactions you have with people and just your thoughts on creating this wonderful book and just how are you feeling? Are you satisfied? Or are you...
Great question. I'm totally satisfied. I feel that I did my part to contribute to this game, if that makes sense. I feel that I can walk around proud that I did that and honored that I did that and fortunate and blessed that I've been able to know these players and hear their stories. It gives me immense satisfaction. Thank you.
Well, we're very glad that you did write it, Michael. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.